My Christmas lights became the reason my HOA chairperson decided to destroy everything I'd built. She didn't just want them down. She claimed I was breaking community standards and warned that next time there'd be no mercy. "It's just tacky," she scoffed at a meeting, looking down on my hard work. But here's the thing. Her problem wasn't the lights. It was that I dared to stand out in her perfect little world. She thought I'd cave. But what she didn't know, I had something on her, and it was about to blow up in her face. But let's start from the beginning. It all started in early December, just as the holiday season was beginning to feel like it might bring some joy. My name's Ben. I'm a 34-year-old software engineer, and I'm the kind of guy who goes all in when it comes to Christmas decorations. I don't just hang a few lights around the porch. No, I turn my entire house into a neon spectacle. This year, I was planning to make it even more insane than last year. On the first day of December, I pulled out the massive boxes of lights, inflated Santas, and fake snow that I'd been collecting for years. I was going all out. If there was a best decorated house competition in the neighborhood, I was going to win it. The holiday spirit was buzzing in the air. Everything was fine until 2 days later, when I got an official letter from the Homeowners Association, HOA. The first line read, "Notice of violation, unauthorized decorations on property." My jaw hit the floor. Unauthorized? Really? I had been decorating my house for Christmas for years. No one had said anything before. Apparently, the HOA had decided that my light show was a violation of some obscure community aesthetic rule, something about excessive illumination. I didn't even know what that meant. The letter went on to say I had 48 hours to take down the lights or face a fine of $500 per day. At first, I thought it was a joke, but no. The HOA was serious, and they had already taken the liberty of setting up a meeting to discuss my violations. If I didn't comply, the fines would keep piling up. I was furious. This wasn't just a fight over lights. It was about my right to express myself on my own property. They were trying to control the way I lived. I decided to take a stand. There was no way I was going to let some overzealous HOA bureaucrats dictate how I celebrated Christmas. But little did I know, things were about to get a whole lot worse. I had a sinking feeling that this wasn't just about the lights. The more I thought about it, the more I realized the HOA had been breathing down my neck for a while. My neighbor, Karen, who lived 2 doors down, was the HOA president. She'd always given me weird looks, like she thought I didn't fit in with her image of the neighborhood. She was the type who'd whisper to the board members about how my lifestyle choices might be impacting property values. I went to the HOA meeting, and there she was, standing in front of the room like some self-appointed queen of the neighborhood. She had her usual smug expression on her face, as if she was personally offended by the sight of my Christmas lights. The other board members, all her puppets, nodded along as she read off more rules about excessive decorations and safety hazards. But what she said next pushed me over the edge. "Ben, we've had multiple complaints about the brightness of your display. People can't sleep, they can't enjoy their homes. This is a residential area, not a carnival." I couldn't believe it. Multiple complaints? Who complained? My neighbors had never said a word about the lights in the past, and now they were all of a sudden suffering? It was clear to me this was a personal vendetta. Karen had always hated the idea of me standing out. She was determined to make an example out of me, and my Christmas decorations were her ammunition. I wasn't about to let her win this. So I decided to escalate things, but I had to be smart about it. I researched HOA laws and my rights as a homeowner. I even consulted a lawyer who told me that while HOAs had a lot of power, they couldn't just make up rules on a whim. If I challenged the fine, it could potentially be dropped. But Karen wasn't backing down. In fact, she doubled down. A few days later, I received another letter from the HOA stating that my fines would increase to $1,000 per day if the lights weren't down by the end of the week. This wasn't about the lights anymore. It was about power and control. I had to take action. I wasn't going to let her turn my home into a battleground, but I also wasn't going to let her get away with it. I knew I couldn't do this alone. I started talking to my neighbors, especially the ones who had been living here for a long time. Turns out, I wasn't the only one who had a problem with Karen and the HOA. Several neighbors had been fined for petty reasons over the years. A garden that was too wild, a fence that was too tall, a mailbox that was the wrong color. Karen and her board had been using their position to force people into compliance with her vision of the neighborhood, whether they liked it or not. I wasn't the only target. In fact, I found out that Karen had a history of abusing her position for personal gain. She had once pressured a family to sell their property at a below-market price after they received an excessive fine for an unapproved treehouse in their backyard. Her goal? She wanted to buy the property herself and flip it for a profit. With this newfound information, I knew I had to hit back hard. I called a lawyer who specialized in HOA disputes, and we started gathering evidence. I made sure to take photos of every letter I'd received from the HOA, recorded all my conversations with board members, and even documented Karen's behavior in the meetings. I also reached out to my neighbors, many of whom were willing to sign a petition to remove Karen from the HOA. But I needed more than just signatures. I needed leverage. So, I dug deeper into the HOA's financials. I discovered that Karen had been pocketing some of the fines that should have been directed toward the community fund. There were emails, financial reports, everything I needed to expose her corruption. The plan was coming together. The HOA had tried to make me the scapegoat, but now it was time to turn the tables. It was time for the HOA to face the music. Armed with evidence, I showed up at the next HOA meeting with my lawyer and a group of supportive neighbors. Karen didn't expect that kind of turnout. When I stood up to speak, I laid it all out. The unjust fines, the shady financial dealings, the intimidation tactics. "Karen," I said, voice steady, "you've abused your position for too long. You've lied, manipulated, and used the HOA to serve your own agenda. You have no right to punish people for their holiday decorations, and you certainly have no right to profit off of our fines." The room went silent. Karen tried to protest, but it was clear she was rattled. The more I spoke, the more the other board members began to look uncomfortable. Some of them were beginning to realize just how deep this went. By the end of the meeting, it was clear that Karen's days as president were numbered. The board voted to remove her from her position, and the HOA agreed to drop all fines against me. But that wasn't the end of it. My lawyer took the matter to court, and the judge ruled that the HOA's actions were unjust. Not only did they have to pay me back for the fines, but they were also forced to revise their rules regarding holiday decorations. The court ruled that as long as the decorations didn't pose a safety risk, people had the right to decorate their homes as they saw fit. As for Karen, she was fined, removed from the HOA entirely, and publicly humiliated. The community started to rebuild, and for the first time in years, the atmosphere felt a lot more like a neighborhood and a lot less like a dictatorship. I left that courtroom feeling like a hero, not just for winning my battle, but for exposing the truth. It wasn't just about Christmas lights anymore. It was about standing up for what's right, no matter how small the issue might seem. And as for my lights, I made them even brighter. After all, I wasn't about to let a bully dim my holiday cheer.